Hello and welcome, friends. I'm Dr. Abhinav Pandya, founder and CEO of Usanas Foundation. Today, we are here to discuss one very critical issue. Recently, on 22nd April, there was a brutal terror attack by Pakistan-sponsored terrorist group, the Resistance Force in Jammu and Kashmir. They killed 28 Hindu tourists based on their religious identity. Now, this brutal terror attack reminds us of what happened on October 7, 2023 in Israel. There was a brutal killing of civilians by the Hamas terrorists. Babies were killed, women were raped, they were paraded in a naked manner. These brutalities are something which are totally antithetical to a modern human society. But we come across such maniacs often in our lives, in our collective existence, in our individual existence. And today, they present a great threat to human society. Today, when India and Pakistan stand on the verge of a full-fledged conventional war, I guess we must understand that terrorism is a great existential threat to humanity. And today we have an amazing expert with us, Colonel Miri Eisin. Colonel Miri also joined us in our Maharana Pratap Annual Geopolitics Dialogue 2025, which we organized in collaboration with the Ministry of External Affairs at Jaipur. And after that conference, today we have with us Miri again. And first, I'm going to introduce Miri and then we'll start the session. Okay. Welcome, Miri.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And my heart goes out to all of you over the horrific terror attack that happened a few weeks ago.
Thank you. Colonel, retired Colonel Miri Eisin is a fellow at International Institute of Counterterrorism. Colonel Eisin served in the Israeli intelligence community and retired from active duty at the rank of a full colonel in 2004. Over her 24-year career in the military, she served as the deputy head of the Combat Intelligence Corps, the personal assistant to the director of military intelligence, and as the intelligence officer in combat units and research departments. After retiring from military, Colonel Eisin served as the Israeli Prime Minister's international media advisor from Second Lebanon War until the end of 2007. Welcome, Colonel Eisin. So today we look forward to an amazing session with you. So first, I'll start with something which is very obvious, something which is again and again coming back to the minds of the people. What similarity do you see between the recent Pahalgam terrorist attack and the Hamas attack of October 7? Because in one of my podcasts about 4 months back, I clearly stated that terror attack, and today it's something which has already happened. So seeing things from Israel, how do you look at it?
Looking at it from here, you're seeing first and foremost a heinous terror attack. And a terror attack is not the same as other kinds of military attacks. It's targeting civilians. It's targeting them, and just because they are not viewed as human beings, because they are viewed in such a horrific way, and in that you immediately see the parallel in the attacking themselves in a beautiful place where you had honeymooners and families, and you're specifically targeting civilians. You're targeting the civilians to gain what the terrorists want, which is some kind of political gain. It's for some kind of political aim. This isn't just criminality. It isn't murderers in that sense. It's terrorists. They're doing so by targeting civilians and by wanting to gain from that some political gain. The second thing, which immediately I noticed, was both in the area and the way that it was attacked. It was immediately posed as being from Pakistani soil entering into Indian soil, and that means it's a cross-border attack. It isn't infiltration of a kind of terror cell. And again, we have things in common. You've had attacks like that in Mumbai and other places inside India. In this case, it's near a border area, and it means that you have all of the facilities, the capabilities inside the host country, and from there you can come and attack using different types of weaponry inside the target country, and in this case, Pakistan against India, done by terrorists, done by those different types of ideologies against civilians, clear-cut similarities, both to Hamas and to Hezbollah, to other terrorists, but especially to that October 7th attack.
Thank you, Miri. Something which has recently come to light is the increasing connection between the Hamas terrorist and Pakistan-sponsored terrorist operating in Kashmir. We came across instances where Hamas terrorists shared diets with the Kashmiri terrorist groups. They joined the Kashmiri terrorists on the Kashmir Solidarity Day, and in fact, there was one report by Dr. Sarah Adams which clearly stated that the October 7 attack in the terrorists in that attack were trained in Afghanistan by the Afghan Taliban Pakistan, this Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and the person who signed the fatwa, the religious decree sanctioning the attack, was Maulana Masood Azhar, the chief of Jaish-e-Mohammed, which has been the most lethal terrorist group operating in Jammu and Kashmir, which orchestrated the Pulwama Fidain attack and also the parliament attack, bringing India and Pakistan on the verge of a full-fledged war twice. So how do you look at this growing nexus between the Kashmiri terrorist groups and the Palestinian terrorist groups? And against this backdrop, I also want to ask you that, India has not yet declared Hamas as a terrorist group. Which for me is something which cannot be explained. It's embarrassing for us, when we claim to be a front runner fighter against terrorist menace in the world, and the Hamas has always acted against India. Their leaders address the rallies in Kerala, canvassing people's support and speaking against Indian government, Indian security forces, and now they have perpetrated such deadly terror attack. So please elaborate more on the linkages between the two groups and what India should do, about this Hamas.
You put so many different terms out there. I'm going to try and take them apart in that sense. Terrorism in general, what it has in common is that the fact that for a political aim, they target civilians to gain that, and they view the civilians as being legitimate targets, which is so horrific that that's exactly where it puts that aspect of terrorism, meaning they're looking for political gain. When we're talking about the terrorism that has grown and flourished inside portions of the Muslim world, not all Muslims are terrorists. Not all Sunnis, not all Shiites. The bulk of people are not terrorists. The ones who go to those extreme ideas, the ones who go to where their political ideology allows them, enables them to look at whatever their political aim is, that the other side is not human at all, that is something that has grown a lot in different Muslim political terrorism fragments, different portions of it over the last 2 decades. So when I look at it, I'm going to take apart two different things you said. Hamas is both Palestinian, it is also Islamist, meaning what it says in itself is that Israel should not exist, that the way to achieve that is that they're allowed to use any aims, killing people, and the fatwas that say that they are allowed to kill civilians are because any civilian is a future soldier. Any civilian is somebody who serves Israel, and as Israel is illegitimate, you're allowed to attack it. So the political aspect within that is enabled by a religious fatwa. And here we can see a lot of things that are in common. In both the Palestinian and the Muslim terror world, and again, I'm separating the two. In the Palestinian Muslim, which is Hamas, and in the, for that sense, Pakistani Muslim, and in the area of Kashmir or in Afghanistan, we're talking about a combination of terror organizations who use countries, the term Palestine, the term Afghanistan, the term Pakistan. From there, they get political ideologies against somebody else, each one against the different elements, and they use religious fatwas as being the justification for doing heinous, horrific terror acts. And that combo is something that we've seen growing over the last 20 years. I would say that all of us were exposed in the Al-Qaeda attack of 2001, but in India, and in Israel, we both have been exposed extensively to those kind of attacks over the last few years. And it's not surprising when you see that the different Muslim, Palestinian, Sunni terror organizations not only have a common idea, religious fatwas, the same ones, and the ones that enable them to justify these heinous acts to themselves, but that they actually meet up. Hamas is perceived as being the most trained, the most, what I'm going to call, experience in the terrorist world. And as such, they have connections. They are reached out to, very similar to the way that Hezbollah, another terror army that is on our northern border in Lebanon, is looked up to as the facilitator, as the pro, if I can call that, a terror pro for other Shiite Muslim terror groups that are all around us. And in this case, we have seen that Hamas, both inspired through the ideology, inspired in the fact that as a Sunni Muslim terror organization, they could do an attack. And in the type of attack that they used, they're teaching other terror organizations now, mainly the Sunni Muslim ones. And you have such both in Pakistan and in Afghanistan, and by the way, in other places in Asia, not only in Southwest Asia, but also in further Eastern Asia, in other areas where you have Sunni Muslims. And these are all going to be common ground. They learn the tactics, the ideology, the extremism, how to use the weapons, and they do so in places which are not as well policed and in places that allow them to do so. And Pakistan has been for many, many years a safe haven, as you know very well. Israel does not have diplomatic ties, not with Pakistan, not with Afghanistan. Both of them are in a state of, in that sense, have never recognized the state of Israel. And both of them are very strong safe havens, mainly for Sunni extreme terrorism. The Shiites mainly go into the Islamic regime of Iran.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I guess I really agree with you. I guess these kind of terror attacks, they present models, they present an ideal situation to be emulated by the other terror groups. Like in the Hamas case, the kind of dastardly and brutal terror attack which it perpetrated in Israel, it has presented a model for the Kashmir-centric terror groups. And as per our latest inputs, Pakistan is trying to create that kind of sentiment in the Kashmiri society itself, so that you don't have dearth of terrorists coming out, and you raise and you rear terrorists among the children when they grow up, and you bring that level of indoctrination. Likewise, another model which is again very common and very fashionable among the terror groups today is the model of Taliban and Syria. There the terror groups have basically formed the governments. They've like kind of formed states. Once they form a state, once a terror group has a legitimate territory, then naturally it becomes authorized to wage jihad and also move towards the caliphate sort of a thing. So those kind of tactics attract the believer Muslims or religious Muslims across the world. One more thing that I would just like to have a brief comment, and later on I'll move to my next question, that you mentioned that not all the Muslims are terrorists. Well, I agree with that. Not all the Sunnis, not all the Shiis, but well, I feel that you'll find an overwhelmingly large number of Muslims who are not directly involved in terrorism. But on festivals like Eid, you see huge gatherings of people in thousands, lakhs. They will be waving Palestinian flags. They are shouting, anti-Israel slogans, anti-India slogans, particularly on Kashmir. So these are the people. They may not be directly involved in terrorism, but they are active. Indirectly, they are the part of the same radicalized ecosystem, which ultimately leads up to the manifestation in the form of a brutal terror attack. And also, even I think that the terrorism is just one of the manifestations of the whole idea of jihad. Jihad is a very comprehensive subject. You have other manifestations also. Even the whole lifestyle where when in this, and let's say in liberal society where people are wearing modern pants, trousers, shorts, you have a group of people which is very hell-bent and very strict about wearing a full veil and keeping the beards in a particular style, and Muslim gear for males and all that. At that very moment, you decide that, well, you are different from the others. The process of otherization, exclusivism starts. Now, this was just my brief comment. My next question now.
I want to step in, though, on one thing on the comment you made.
Sure, yeah.
I think it's important for everybody to remember that Hamas, when they did their heinous attack on October 7th, they called it El Aqsa Flood. And this directly goes to the comment that you just made right now, Doctor, which is
Yeah.
the aspect that for all of Islam, Sunni, Shiite, no matter who they are, Al-Aqsa is a very important symbol. So when you're
Yes.
calling something about freeing Al-Aqsa, not knowing anything else, you're going, who's at Al-Aqsa? Oh, it's the Israelis. They're the ones who, and then you get a whole horrific, erroneous, negative aspect, which brings out what I'm going to call uneducated. And as you said, at the end, it's about the gatherings, the way that they're going. So they're going to have a Palestine flag and they're going to be against Israel when what was being sent to them in that sense is unbased in so many different ways, but it directly connects to the religion. So there's certainly an overlap, and I'm absolutely aware of that because education is key.
But here, I have come across umpteen number of incidents where even the educated ones, some of the real, like highly intellectual ones, they deliberately, and that too in an overt manner or in a very tacit manner, support this kind of Islamist agenda. And that includes some of our senior, bureaucrats, diplomats, though they will couch their, pro-Palestinian, pro-terrorist sentiments in a very diplomatic, in a very modern political jargon. But internally, you can always sense what is the real intent. My next question. So now everything, the question which is being discussed in India, in the media, among the government, among the think tank circuit is that what India can do. Well, Israel's retaliation, Israel's anti-terrorism action following the October 7 attack is again a model. Definitely, I mean, there was a lot of flack across the world, but there was something which was required. And I mean, as I don't really say about the government, but as think tankers, as strategic experts, we stand with Israel in what Israel did. I mean, that kind of massive action was justified. I guess for India also, it's time now that it acted and take a very serious action for some kind of an effective and a long-lasting solution for this problem. What can India do? What do you think? Because last time we did air strikes and surgical strikes, those things have not deterred Pakistan. I mean, I know it's a little tricky question, but from your side, how do you look at it?
As I look at it, India and Pakistan share a very long border, let alone a very long history. And what we're talking about is two sovereign countries. And I think that when I talk about India and what Pakistan has done, I'm looking more towards Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon than Israel and Hamas inside the Gaza Strip. And that also has to do with what we were talking about before. Palestinian as an entity, the country India recognizes Palestine. And because of that, they don't not recognize Hamas. That's a very challenging thing. But at the end, there are lots of countries in the world who don't recognize Palestine as a country. But everybody says India and Pakistan. And for India to take action against the terror elements inside Pakistan, the first thing is to clear-cut define, are those terror elements supported by the government? And that needs to be shown. People need to understand. And I'm not saying because I know that they do. I'm saying that it's very important for both sides to clear-cut see if there is the involvement of the official country in this kind of backing of terror. Backing of terror is in giving it a safe haven, the way that the Islamic regime of Iran gives safe haven to all sorts of different terror organizations. And because of that, you can't ignore that. You have to face it and address it. If the Pakistanis are in any way helping these different terror organizations by giving them a safe haven, by not stopping smuggling, let alone if they allow them to be in the border areas, to do cross-border attacks, to build capabilities along the borders, again, on the Pakistani side, these are things that need to be brought out, clarified, because if it is so, then India, in that sense, needs to act. Second thing I would say is that Israel was very, very hesitant for many years, even though we had an enormous amount of information about Hamas. I'll even go so far as to say hesitant to the degree that when Hamas attacked on October 7th, we didn't know what to do at the beginning. Israel was not hesitant about our action against Hezbollah from October 7th and 8th and onward throughout this war. And you can see a distinct difference between sovereign state of Israel's actions against Hamas inside the Gaza Strip and against the whole aspect of the Palestinians, both in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, and between Israel's actions against Hezbollah. And to be very clear, Hezbollah are Lebanese. They are not Iranians. They're not Persian speaking. They weren't born in Persia and came to live in Lebanon. They are Lebanese Shiites who were inspired by the Islamic Revolution in Iran, and they want to take that and duplicate that in Lebanon. And when Israel took its actions, we did so systematically based on intelligence. We did so both against the terror capabilities, but we constantly told the world, this is what we're attacking, this is why we're attacking, this is what they're planning, this is what we are preventing. And at the end, the last point I would make is I think that Israel, even though we tried hard and we've been very effective, I don't want to say successful, I will say effective against Hezbollah's terror capabilities, we have not been as effective against Hamas's terror capabilities. What I think is very important is to have upfront the issue of the civilians. Doctor, as we all know, the horrific attack on April 2nd, where you had almost 30 people murdered, butchered by terrorists, is a large number. Having said that, on October 7th in Israel, 1,200 people, 1,200 people were killed in Israel, in a country where only 10 million people. You have 24 that were murdered, 27 that were murdered on April 2nd in a country of over a billion. What are you, 1,400,000,000 people? And I say that because when you act against the terrorists, to me, stay on your Indian higher moral ground. Do what we did. Make sure that civilians are not there. If they're there, tell them to leave. If they're still there, tell them to leave again. And if they still stay, that's something else. But I'm saying that because I feel that that's been the point where we've had the biggest gap between Israel and those who are not military people in understanding any of our actions.
Thank you. Absolutely, I agree with you on that count. That time, definitely a major action is required, and the government of India is contemplating. And so a lot of rumors and a lot of uncertainty prevailing right now. And there's a possibility that this can escalate into a full-scale war also. And if that happens, we expect that Turkey is going to come to Pakistan's rescue in a major way, because Turkey has been the most ardent supporter of Pakistan in various ways. Either through supporting Pakistan in multilateral forums or through covert measures, defense equipments, even by sending jihadis in many quarters. So if that happens, I mean, suppose if this has a very complex international dimension and escalation, with Turkey coming to Pakistan's support. Do you think that Israel can help India, or Israel can, do something to, to contain that kind of Turkish involvement? Because I know that after the Syrian regime change, Turkey is also trying. I mean, it soon becomes a major threat to Israel also.
So as soon as you started to say Turkey, I was thinking to myself, and here we have something else sadly in common, because Turkey, Erdogan, the president of Turkey, is one of the openly strongest supporters of Hamas. And as you said, backing Pakistan, it's what we call right now the Muslim Brotherhood, as one of the versions of Islamism that becomes jihadi Islamism. It can come out of that. And Erdogan himself and his party in Turkey, very much at the end, has a very strong Muslim aspect. I think that Israel right now does not want to come to a confrontation with Turkey, just like I think that India does not want to be in a confrontation, direct one with Pakistan, let alone with Turkey. Nobody wants war. The question always is, what's the price of not taking action? I think that Israel has understanding of how you try to prevent the front confrontation. Hamas is the terror organization. In Lebanon, we are attacking Hezbollah. We're not attacking Lebanon. We didn't attack any infrastructure of Lebanon. And there's a quiet dialogue right now with the facilitators, the United States, that enables Israel to try to attack Hezbollah without touching Lebanon, with the acquiescence of Lebanon and the Lebanese military, meaning we're not getting into a direct confrontation. If you are attacking in Pakistan just the terrorists, that's one level. If in Pakistan it becomes a full-scale war, Turkey is a member of NATO. Just think of how that, in that sense, compromises and adds in. Israel has been using side negotiators, not as well known. Some of them I think that we also spoke to together in the past. Azerbaijan. There are other countries that are Muslim countries, both in Central Asia and other places, that are kind of facilitators who don't have the type of terrorism that you have in India, of Islamic terrorism, and that we have against us in Israel. And that's to try to avoid the direct confrontation, because at the end, just like nobody wanted the Israeli war against Hamas and against Hezbollah and against the Islamic regime of Iran to become a world war, everybody wanted to contain it. I think that with Turkey right now trying to be the main strong regional actor in what for you is Western Asia, for us here in the greater Middle East, is something that we're trying to contain, and we can work at it together. I think that our misunderstanding is more about Pakistan, because Pakistan for me is a country that scares me. I'm saying as an Israeli, it's a Muslim Sunni country that can, in that sense, both with nuclear capabilities, that for me, what if they give a bomb to somebody? What if a nuclear capability to somebody else? What if they would allow these terrorists to have nuclear capability in a variety of ways, a dirty bomb, aside something? So, and Turkey does not have nuclear capabilities, and Turkey is still a member of NATO, and Turkey is still in a location. We don't border it. Syria borders it, and we border Syria. But I think that we have common ground to try to make sure that Turkey stays where it is, that it doesn't come after India, that it doesn't come after Israel, that it doesn't involve itself in every conflict right now, stepping in as the savior. That's not what it should be doing. And I think that you have way more impact than we do, because it's also about the economy and economic ties, and not just about the military.
Thank you. I really agree with you that Pakistan is a nuclear headache for the entire world now, and the nukes are very unsafe in Pakistan, definitely. I mean, it's going to be a big menace because, I mean, given that context, I guess India needs to take a very firm and decisive action, something which is long-term, because this nuclear blackmail has been a big headache for us. And with our experience, because once Pakistan acquired nuclear blackmail, its audacity increased. Pakistan started conducting more lethal and brutal Fidayeen attacks in India. And for almost about 20 odd years, about 18 years, India did not retaliate because India feared Pakistan's nuclear capabilities. Even after the deadly terror attack of 2008 in Mumbai, in which the Israelis also died, India did not retaliate because India feared the nuclear capabilities. And I suspect, I mean, I'm afraid that same thing is going to happen in the case of Israel if Iran acquires the nuclear capabilities. And with the recent, I mean, the inputs about Iran's, hiking up the enrichment levels, it looks very likely that if Iran is not controlled, in a very decisive manner, then they're not very far from acquiring nuclear capabilities. So in that context, I mean, do you think that things are going to escalate between Iran and Israel? Because I'm told that Americans are trying to strike a deal with the Iranians. And Americans have a soft corner for Erdogan also, because I mean, they have other ambitions in mind too. They want to weaken the BRICS and all. But if you strike a deal with Iranians, then definitely it's going to be another trick to buy time and just to enrich your weapon. And maybe 5 years down the line, Americans are not that strong that they can support you. And when that happens, you'll have all kinds of adversaries like Russians, Chinese supporting these terrorist actors and these Islamist regimes in West Asia against Israel. So how do you look at that? I mean, don't you think that Israel really needs to completely dysfunction, make the regime dysfunctional, neutralize it? I mean, the Iranian situation.
Doctor, you just presented such a, dismal future for us. I'm smiling just because we're here and we don't plan on going anywhere, but we're not a
I've
world
asked
power.
Miri, I have asked this question to Ambassador Azhar also,
Okay.
the former ambassador also, and various other people. But I mean, I'm still
I
waiting for the
accept
best
that,
answer.
but I'm going to give it in a different sense. We're
Yeah.
not a world power. India is a world power. Certainly the United States, certainly Russia, certainly China, but we're not a world power. When I look at the Islamic regime of Iran, Iran is not a world power. It has strategic alliances right now, certainly with Russia, and I would say with China. And so we look at all of those, but I can't disconnect. The United States of America is not a world power. It's not yet leaving the world stage. It's going through lots of different changes. It still has an economy that puts all of our economy even with everything going on now, tariffs and all, both the military that they have, the capabilities that they have, the technologies, there's nothing like it. And Israel is still strongly aligned with the values and the capabilities of the United States of America. I think that Israel has been branching out, looking into the future. And one of those branchings out is the fact that we have very strong ties now with India. And we did not have that in the past. And that's a wonderful development. We have common enemies. We have common interests. We have common values. And that makes us stronger. When it comes to the Islamic regime of Iran achieving nuclear capability, the United States will do what's best for the United States. I want to hope that what's best for the United States includes me, Israel, in there. I have no problem with any president arriving at a deal with the Islamic regime of Iran that means that they don't have nuclear capability. I'm fine with that. If you can do it through a deal, do it through a deal. What I'm only worried about is that the deal will not stop the nuclear capability. And if you do a deal and you open up all the doors and it doesn't have within it guarantees, and again, there's nothing completely guaranteed, but serious guarantees, and from my point of view as an Israeli, better guarantees than what was in the earlier deal, because otherwise, why leave it? That make sure that they're not going down the nuclear path, because that nuclear path, as you said clearly, the Indian-Pakistani relationship has everything to do with Pakistan being nuclear. And if the Islamic regime of Iran goes nuclear, if I said before, Pakistan scares me with a bomb, because who knows who they'll give it to. What am I supposed to think of with Iran? What am I supposed to think of what Russia does in day-to-day life because they're nuclear, or how people treat North Korea? It's like you immediately see the difference on what that does in the relationships, in what they can do. But when you're talking about a country that openly supports terrorism, that is such a state-sponsored terrorism, that does terrorism on behalf of the state, and to have nuclear capability, that seems like who would want that to happen? I think that I am more than happy to have the U.S. try to get there. I think that Israel has been very clear that if it doesn't happen, that there are real guarantees that they're not going down the military nuclear path, that Israel, with the United States or without, would try to do as much as we could to prevent the Islamic regime of Iran having nuclear capability. We would act. I don't see us staying passive.
Thank you very much, Miri. I hope that Americans try to strike a deal which is, good for all of us, including Israel, and which ultimately brings peace. But with that, I would like to add a small caveat. That it's just about the American track record of dealing with the Islamist regimes or the Muslim countries. I'm just giving you an example of Pakistan. They intervened in Afghanistan in 2001 after the September 11 attacks. And after that, Pakistan joined them as their main ally in the global war on terror. For 20 odd years, they spent billions and trillions of dollars, arming Pakistan's army, giving them the best of technology, communication devices, everything. And on the other hand, Pakistan very cleverly, in a very discreet manner, kept supporting, arming, and strengthening Taliban, and even giving bases to Al Qaeda and all kinds of Islamic regimes. Finally, Americans, I mean, when they got completely frustrated with their developmental efforts in Afghanistan and wasted billions of dollars, the Taliban, which was nicely sheltered in Quetta in Pakistan, with the Pakistani support, inflicted massive damage and Americans had to leave. For 20 odd years, Americans were fooled by Pakistanis. Hope that doesn't happen.
I'm gonna agree with you and say that I think that what's happened inside Israel in the last 10 years or so is both feeling strongly, let's go with the United States, but also trying out and exploring and expanding other relationships to make sure that we have common ground. And again, as I said, that's certainly part of our very important relationship with India today.
Thank you very much, Miri. So with this, we come to the end of our today's interview. It was wonderful to have you again with us at Usanas Foundation. And thank you very much for your very succinct, crisp, and to the point and very insightful answers. And I must say that I'm absolutely enlightened and delighted with your thoughts. And I hope that I mean our audience really watches this and and they take a clue from what you have to share about these things, and hope the policymakers they also take a clue and definitely take a page out from the Israeli playbook, because they watch our programs. That's why I'm saying this. So we look forward to inviting you more often in the future, and look forward to a very constructive and a very meaningful engagement and collaboration with you, your institution. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
as well. I greatly appreciate
Yeah,
it. Thank you.
yeah.